Nature is one of the few things in life that we as humans cannot control. Natural disasters happen all over the world. Hundreds to thousands to even millions of people are usually affected. Homes and businesses are destroyed, lives are lost, and there is always work to be done in order to rebuild. Since we can't avoid nor control what the earth throws at us, the only thing that we can do is recover once it's over. Within the last years, multiple natural disasters have struck the United States, affecting the lives of millions, but some have recovered and some are still recovering.
The East Coast is being pummeled with the power of a record-breaking superstorm.
Oh my God, it's washing everything away!
90-mile-per-hour winds, driving rain, record-breaking high tides, and rough surf lash the coastline.
Superstorm Sandy struck on October 24, 2012. A total of 24 U.S. states were in some way affected. The hurricane caused tens of billions of dollars in damage, destroyed thousands of homes, left millions without electric service, and caused 72 direct deaths and 87 indirect deaths. In all, a total of about 160 people were killed due to the storm, making Sandy the deadliest hurricane to hit the United States mainland since Hurricane Katrina in 2005, and the deadliest to hit the U.S. East Coast since Hurricane Agnes in 1972. In the 10 months following Sandy, many people looked to rebuild their destroyed homes and wanted protection for their houses if a similar storm ever struck again. Many advocated for the building of dunes to prevent the same level of damage from happening in future storms. The Army Corps and Mayor Chris Christie worked together to create a plan that included 22-foot-high dunes and 200-foot-wide beaches, but not everyone was an advocate. Some oceanfront property owners refused to sign easements that would allow the government to follow through with the project. Some didn't want their view obstructed, and others believed that if they signed over the land, the government would build boardwalks, bathrooms, or other public establishments to attract beachgoers and tourists. Environmental advocates and coastal scientists said that everyone should move away from the shore altogether. With rising sea levels and the fact that maintenance of the dunes is too huge a job and costs too much money, they say that the building of the dunes is a pointless project. Many argue that global warming is going to cause more and more issues in the future, including more flooding and storm surges, episodic erosion, chronic erosion, sea level rise, and yet more hurricanes. But household owners refused to leave, saying that it was their home and they were not going to just walk away.
The only thing standing between Addie Quinn's house in Lido Beach, New York, and surge from Superstorm Sandy was two 25-foot-high sand dunes.
That's a natural barrier, a good, thick dune. We lost the primary dune. But by the time that was lost, we still had the secondary dune, to keep us safe.
What would this house look like if you didn't have these dunes here during Sandy?
It would not be here.
Construction of these dunes began in the 1970s. The town enlarged the natural dunes and strengthened them over the years with plants.
The roots are like cement. They hold the sand in place. We have poison ivy, we have beach grass. They're wonderful dune plants.
The high and wide dunes absorb and disperse the energy from pounding surf. But some shore towns have avoided building dunes. Retired police detective Brendan Finn lives less than 3 miles from Addie Quinn in Long Beach, New York. Sandy pushed water over the beach down his street and around his home.
The water just kept coming up step by step till it got to right here and started coming in my door.
Long Beach refused to build dunes because the people who lived there were concerned about obstructed views and the $7 million price tag. Sandy ended up causing $200 million in damage. But some towns still reject dune building.
With our active boardwalk and the number of people that come down here all during the year, I think a dune is an unnecessary element.
Charles Rooney is town engineer in Avon-by-the-Sea, New Jersey. Although Sandy ripped apart Avon's boardwalk, Rooney says dunes offer no guarantees.
The tide surge associated with that storm consumed the beach and would have consumed the dune. Once you construct a dune, it is protected by the state. And then as it starts to grow or migrate and get taller in height, there are limitations as to what you can do to change that.
Residents of rain-soaked Boulder were ordered to to evacuate last night after a 30-foot surge of water sent mud, rocks, and debris rushing down Boulder Creek to the heart of the city. The storm walloped Colorado and moved away, but then did a U-turn, came back for punch number 2, and just hung on. Neil Mize had never seen its match before.
No, I've been here about 25 years. This is unimaginable to me.
Making it worse were the big boulders that tumbled down the mountainsides. Homes and cars were no match for a storm so fast and furious.
A month after the historic flooding in September 2013, the big cities such as Boulder, Loveland, and Fort Collins, Colorado were bustling again. But the small villages in the mountains remained practically ghost towns. Glen Haven is a small village on the road toward the Rocky Mountain National Park, and in October, over a month after the storm, 80% of Glen Haven homes were still vacant, and most businesses were either closed or gone, swept 7 miles into the town of Drake, which was still obliterated and empty, except for those who refused to evacuate. They felt forgotten by the relief effort, as the cleanup was done by an all-volunteer crew of Glen Haven and Drake locals, and for 36 days not a single county or state road crew arrived, which resulted in the delay of all other services, leaving the town trapped high in the mountains without phones, power, or a way down. When road crews finally did arrive, they found huge tracts of the roadway between the two towns completely destroyed, and expected to stay that way until at least 2015. In Drake, the road was closed indefinitely during construction. The residents got only one 4-hour window a week to work on their homes or welcome damage assessors before abandoning the town again as the road reclosed. Both towns lost a lot of money since they rely on mostly tourism to make their livings. An economist at the University of Colorado said that the loss of just one season of tourist traffic could doom a town like Glen Haven, and with the 3 years expected to completely rebuild, they will be missing more than just one tourist cycle. On Sunday, November 10, 2013, a twister ravaged Washington, Illinois, a city with a population of about 15,000. It killed at least 8 people, ripped through cul-de-sacs, and destroyed countless homes and businesses. But when the tornado struck, many of those residents were at St. Patrick, Crossroads, Apostolic Christian, or other local churches, which mostly escaped serious damage. Just before the tornado dropped from the clouds, Sunday school students taking cover at Apostolic Christian Church began singing "Yes, Jesus Loves Me." A few blocks away at Crossroads United Methodist Church, the Reverend Casey Taylor led prayers in the bathroom where early arrivers for the 11 a.m. service were seeking shelter. And across town at St. Patrick Catholic Church, the Reverend Stephen Willard helped worshipers across Jefferson Street and into the pews. Washington's churches did more than provide members shelter from the storm. In the days following the disaster, they transformed into hubs for the recovery effort. Apostolic Christian turned into a command center for work crews arriving from across the state and region, a spot for volunteers to get their assignments and recharge with a warm lunch. Crossroads became a Red Cross shelter, a place to spend the night, receive first aid care, or meet with insurance adjusters. And the gym at St. Patrick morphed into a distribution center for coats, boots, dog food, and other supplies. Volunteers showed up in droves, and by Wednesday the 13th, there were nearly 175 volunteers from across the Midwest to search through rubble, clear cornfields, or pitch in some other way. California's current drought is being billed as the driest period in the state's recorded rainfall history. California in 2013 received less rain than in any year since it became a state in 1850. And Bay Area scientists say that based on TrueRing data, the current rainfall season is on pace to be the driest since 1580. Through studies of tree rings, sediments, and other natural evidence, researchers have documented multiple droughts in California that lasted 10 to 20 years in a row during the past 1,000 years, compared to the mere 3-year duration of the current dry spell. The longest droughts of the 20th century, what Californians think is severe, occurred from 1987 to 1992 and from 1928 to 1934. Both are minor compared to the ancient droughts of 850 to 1090 and from 1140 to 1320. What would happen if the current drought continued for another 10 years or more? Longtime water experts say, although many Californians think that the population growth is the main driver of water demand statewide, it's actually agriculture. In an average year, farmers use 80% of the water consumed by people and businesses. So if the state were to go into a mega drought, cities would be inconvenienced greatly and suffer some. Smaller cities would get it worse, but farmers would take the biggest hit.
This is the driest California has been since 1884.
Make no mistake, this drought is a big wake-up call.
The latest drought map released Thursday does not look good.
We know going back in history, there have been some very, very long droughts, which they call mega droughts, and we might well be in one of those.
More than half of San Diego County is in a severe drought. Almost 70% of the state shaded in bright red is in extreme drought. Now look at the dark red. For the first time in 15 years, parts of our state are in the highest level called exceptional drought. And 17 water agencies across California are in danger of going dry in the next 60 to 100 days. Governor Brown said he's asked the president for help with moving water from Southern California to dry areas if needed.
We have to really use technology and self-restraint and creativity.
In this case is, again, to use the infrastructure that we have to move water in aqueducts from one region to another.
And if it gets worse,
we may see having to move water in tanker trucks to small rural communities that really don't have other choices.
The White House issued this statement after President Obama had the conversation with Governor Brown on Wednesday. The president reinforced his commitment to providing the necessary federal support to the state and local efforts. On January 17th, Governor Brown declared a drought emergency and asked everyone to cut back on their water usage at least 20%. In Central San Diego, Craig Herrera, 10 News.
Wildfires are burning out of control in San Diego County. This is Carlsbad. The city sent notices today to 11,000 homes and businesses ordering people to get out. The Carlsbad fire is one of 4 in the county. Another is threatening homes at Camp Pendleton.
Many people have become victims as fires continue to ravage California, burning down homes and destroying acres and acres of land. And when first responders leave the scene of the disaster, the survivors are left to figure out their recovery on their own. So on May 28, 2014, emergency management agencies, including the City of Los Angeles Emergency Management Department and the San Francisco Department of Emergency Management, have adopted a new tool that is helping disaster survivors in their communities rebuild their lives. The Red Guide to Recovery Resource Handbook for Disaster Survivors was written by San Diego author Sean Scott. It is a recovery roadmap that walks disaster survivors step by step through the days, weeks, and months that follow a disastrous event.
This Red Guide, when you put this in the hand of the victim, they look at it and they understand and they appreciate it. Now, here is what you need to help you get back on your feet.
Very succinctly brings them through step by step what they need to do to go from being a victim of a fire to having their home restored and livable again. And it covers a huge gamut of issues that will come up.
This book is an outstanding tool. It needs to get in the hands of every firefighter. They need to get familiar with it so that when they're on scene, they can do those customer service type of acts and hand that book out.
Throughout the year, thousands of homes and businesses were lost, millions of people were affected, and the recovery effort was organized. Communities were tested, especially in small areas such as Glen Haven, Colorado. Volunteers swarmed the affected area, such as those who were Throughout the year, thousands of homes and businesses were lost, millions of people were affected, and the recovery effort was organized. Communities were tested, especially in small areas such as Glen Haven, Colorado. Volunteers swarmed the affected areas, like those who arrived in Washington, Illinois, and received their assignments from local churches. Debates were struck up as to what to do in case a similar event ever occurred in the future, such as the Dune debates in New Jersey. And new ways to help survivors recover were made up, such as the Red Guide to Recovery Handbook that was written and adopted in California. Some people are still being affected, such as those in California where the drought continues and could potentially continue for years to come, not to mention the fires that still destroy homes and burn acres and acres of land. When it comes to these sorts of devastating events, it's not just the government that has to get involved, but the people and the community as well, through donations, hard work, organization, and strength.